Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. I will admit, I have been struggling for the past year and some months over this self-imposed quarantine I have engaged in that I'm only now breaking out of. I have been struggling with my creative efforts. I have been searching for tools, trying to master alternate forms of expressing myself artistically, linguistically, studying game engines, and trying to once again master 3D modeling and other forms of animation. And while I've made some progress, it is not something that I have gotten enough headway in to say that I've really made significant progress. And Unreal has just moved to they just released early access for Unreal 5, and that needs to stabilize, and people need to dig in and work on tutorials and defining the features. The people who make the plugins for Unreal need to update some of them from 4 to 5. So that's got to get put on the shelf for a little while. Blender's about to move to version 3 from 2.9.3, where it's currently at. And that means that time has to pass for those plugins to evolve and those tutorials, people to actually dig into being able to teach the techniques that the software needs, so that can go on the shelf for a little while. And I look at my own creative efforts and realize that there's something I've been doing all along, something that I can do, something that I'm pretty good at. And I should probably focus on that. I may have shied away from the production of game materials because I'm afraid that certain types of damage have made it difficult for me to engage in them. Toolbox fallacy, imposter syndrome, any number of reasons that I haven't been producing the way I need to produce. So, for this very special episode of Matters of DeCorum, I have decided to challenge myself based on some suggestions from my Patreons. Thank you for your suggestions. This has been an interesting process getting to this point. I am going to do something I have done once or twice in public or in groups of friends, but this time with rules. I am going to make a D&D campaign right here in front of you. Not all the art, all the maps, not the totality of what would go out in a publication. I'm going to conceptually design it from the ground up. I do not have this campaign in my head right now. And how can you at home know that? It's kind of like a magic trick. I've got to do the presentation in such a way that you are convinced I'm working from something I don't currently have to work with. So, there's going to be some random elements involved here. This is a chart of different flavors for a D&D campaign. You've got vanilla, which is your stock Forgotten Realms setting, or steampunk. You incorporate some cogs and gears, some Victorian society elements, and airships. Diesel punk, which is more industrial, more mechanical, a little bit grungier than your steampunk 1930s, 40s vibe, as opposed to the Victorian vibe. Cyberpunk, which does not mix with D&D traditionally, but your chrome and neon, your 80s fashion sensibilities, along with your integration of the mechanical and the electronic into the flesh style over substance. We talked about the cyberpunk genre before, and throwing it in as a Dungeons and Dragons modifier, interesting possibility. A low magic campaign, I discussed the whole magic item economy and how if magic is declining and people aren't making magic items, that they're rare and you can't buy them, there's no magic shops, stuff like that. So that would be a world where magic is in the decline and it's not as common, and maybe those with magic are a lot rarer than you'd normally imagine, or a high magic campaign where magic is common and prevalent and people are using it right and left. It's almost like Cast a Deadly Spell, a show where one, H.P. Lovecraft is a hard-boiled detective in the 30s. Love that concept, but everyone knows a little magic. It's common. It's ubiquitous. It's just a part of society. I want to roll on that. I'm going to roll on that using this online die roller. So that you're aware that I am using this online die roller right in front of your eyes. And then, once I've got the flavor of the world set up, I am going to create a villain. I'm going to create a villain that is going to be the overriding arc. I'm going to use villain-based planning, come up with what the villain is about, and how their actions are going to motivate the party and form the basis for the storyline of the campaign. And I'm not going to just imagine a villain from scratch, because there's no way you can know. I didn't have this villain in my head all the time. I'm going to roll on this excellent random character generator that is going to give me the class and the race and the subclass, the background, all of that completely random. I might need to take a moment to research, which I will do in this window online. Research what if it's a race I'm not familiar with, or a class or subclass, that one of the funky ones that I just haven't had chance to research. I'll research that right here in front of you. So that, I'm not going off and reading someone else's campaign or doing a search for a campaign involving a villain like that. All of this straight out of here. If I don't do it like this, I cannot say I've earned your trust, and I want you to know that what is coming out of my head is being generated here, now, like this. And it's like a magic trick. It's my party piece. It's creativity at speed. I am using a performance-enhancing chemical for this task, just so you know. This is my standard morning cold brew. My wife brews a pot of this at the beginning of the week, gets poured out over the next 2-3 days. There is no Death Wish coffee in this cold brew. That shipment arrived last night and will be incorporated in the next pot that's being made for me, but is not a part of this one. Modify this settings on this chart a little bit. I'm going to remove references to books I don't have. I would like to have Volo's Guide to Monsters and Volo's Guide to Monsters Races. I own neither of those and have not read them, so I'm going to exclude them from the random generator. Xenothar's, I have a copy of Mordenkainen's. I just haven't read it. So I'm going to remove Mordenkainen's. And the elemental evil player's companion, again, I don't have that. So I'm going to remove that, which still leaves Xanathar's Tasha's the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide, which has a lot of alternate character information in it. I'm going to include the DMG, and I am going to include Eberron Rising from the Last War. I got a copy of that right next to me, so I can do some research here and some research there. I've played in Wildmount, but I wouldn't say I'm familiar with it. I have no idea what's going on with Ravnica. I'm not a Magic player. I never have been. I'd like to have Acquisitions Incorporated again. That seems really fun for me, but I haven't picked it up, haven't studied it. So we're going to stick with those source books for the generation of our character. Incidentally, I have found this character generator to be absolutely magnificent. It has given me great results as I've done some tests over the past couple days. I'm going to post a link to this character generator in the description for this video. So I invite you, if you have a need of purely random D&D characters, pop on by, give it a try, bookmark it, and I sent the guy a coffee. He has a support for Ko-fi link up at the top. I sent him a coffee. Buy him a coffee. This is a really good project. So those are the rules. First roll. What is our flavor of Dungeons and Dragons? Rolls of 4. God damn it. And cyberpunk is the flavor of our D&D. Cyberpunk is the flavor of, okay, I put it on the chart to throw myself a curve, and this is what I get. Okay. Cyberpunk's the flavor of our D&D. Who's our villain? Dorgath Burrowfound, Hill Dwarf Warlock of the Celestial folk hero background. Just alignment out of curiosity. Occupation, entertainer. Ability. Where's alignment? I know it's in here. Hot tempered interaction trait. Talent, ability, appearance, bond, ideal, occupation. You'd think alignment would be one of those things. Chaotic neutral. Well, I get a little bit of background for him. Born at the home of family friends, parents were imprisoned, enslaved, or otherwise taken away from a poor lifestyle, raised in a rundown shack. Other sons being different or strange, we had few companions. Fell in love and got married to a dwarf explorer wanderer. Did something that brought terrible shame to you and your eyes, your family. Been involved in a scandal, dabbled in dark magic, or offended. Oh man, it writes itself. Or offended someone important to your family members. Towards you becomes different at best, though they might eventually forgive you. Made an enemy, a human fighter. Made a friend of a gnome fighter. You have a trinket tooth from an unknown beast. And while he's got a celestial, otherworldly patron, the patron attitude, your patron tricked you into a pact and treats you as a slave. It became a warlock because your future patron visited you in your dreams and offered great power in exchange for service. Oh my. Okay. All right. Okay. Dorgath. Burrowfound. Unfortunate name for a dwarf. That's your Dorgar? In which case it's like being Fred. So we're going to start with the Forgotten Realms because that's baseline D&D. But what has happened? Why is it cyberpunky? Go to one of my own inventions from a while ago, the Mind Engine. Gnomish tinkerers have discovered that they can combine clockwork and certain crystals and intricate connections in magic and psionic devices between one another to form artificial structures capable of holding essentially a mind, a structure in which a mind appears to be emergent. It's where your Warforged come from. It's a fairly small mind engine driving that, and there is a certain amount of trepidation in the concept of emergent intelligence, especially when you got this high magic society around that, where there's questions about is there demonic influence? Is there celestial influence? Is there something from the outside, some outer being, some dark mind flayer secret at the base of this? Where the truth of the matter is, no, this is just something that can happen when gnomes are exceedingly clever. And when they share that knowledge with other races, and the elves threw some of their astonishing craftsmanship into it, and the dwarves threw some of their rugged power behind it. And as a council of races, they formed not just a collection of mind engines that help them to govern and rule this particular kingdom, a kingdom that emerged because they were capable of combining over not warfare or not for defense, but because they were crafting something that was wondrous and could become more so only if they shared their knowledge and their skills. The kingdom of Craftorum, which is governed by a ruling council of various races, who are chosen by mind engines, a selection of them that constantly communicate with one another, think to one another, have a inflow of information from throughout the kingdom, who are informed what the kingdom needs, and the mind engines decide who best to rule. There are rumors that there are those who can influence the mind engines through craft or some other mental discipline, but this is unfounded rumor and fake news, obviously. Now that we have a computer system in our fantasy world, a system that has become a cybocracy of sorts, if you can do this with the mind engine, if you can talk with your brain to a machine, then someone who loses a limb in warfare or an accident, there's obviously a heavy dwarven component to this land, and mining accidents happen. Mining accidents are terrible. Mining accidents involving flowing magma or piercers falling from the ceiling, even worse. Lose a limb, lose an organ, lose an eye. That's fairly common, but that would end the career of most dwarves. They could always have slapped on some clunky iron appendage that they could wave around and pretend was a useful limb, but now, if you use some of that mind engine technology, if you weave certain magics and certain structures throughout that piece of craftsmanship that you build, you have a functioning golem limb, a golem, a phrase I adapted from GURPS Magic, um, uh, or an artifact limb. Which, depending on who it is attached to and who manufactured it, is going to be a entirely different style. You've got your very bulky, very sturdy, very durable dwarven limbs, which might have digging tools built into them, just so that, or maybe a small cannon in the forearm, because you can fit a small cannon in a dwarven forearm. Fight me! Or the elven limbs, which are woven through with gold and silver and mithril. They're graceful, extremely dexterous, which you might have sets for calligraphy built right in, might have an ink store and extrude a pen when you need to engage in artwork or poetry, or perhaps fine metalworking tools, or glowing crystals, enhancing your magic, allowing you to sense when there is a spell or spell effect in your area. Or your gnomish structures, which are just going to be packed full of tools. Tinkerer's tools, yes. Thieves' tools, probably so. Any other kind of tool, well, toss me a couple of gold, we'll see what we can do with it. They're going to act very much like a living limb because they're going to be the most intricate and the most complex, and they're going to appear completely unlike a living limb because they're so intricate and complex. It's going to be like a Michael Bay Transformer or one of the later Iron Man suits from the Avengers movies, because it's going to be constantly shifting plates and components so that it looks like it's moving like a living arm, but in order to do that, all the hard structures need to constantly shift around to give room for the gears and cogs and pistons to displace for those motions. So you've got a society now that beings, dwarves, are living, capable of living almost as long as your average elf now, because something wears out, you just replace it. Medicine becomes very prevalent because you can replace things, you can enhance things, you can repair things you never thought you could before. You can have eyes that can see through living tissue, and you can diagnose problems faster. Some things you can do with magic, and you can craft magic items that can do this. And where the magic fails you, you use the technology that is emergent. You ask a mind engine to help you design something, and you get this approaching singularity situation where now that you have mind engines that can help people design things, with given a certain amount of time, mind engines might simply be able to make and even to design and perhaps manufacture more and better mind engines, and the technology can advance without living oversight. This is a terror of the society. There is some kind of resistance to that. You have a small group that is very, very pleased with that set of advances and wants to create the magical mind engine singularity, and a society that just isn't ready for that. That there has to be some, we still need to have an input. If we stop if we stop being involved in that, we don't know where they're going to go. Medicine, medicine, vehicular technology, forget airships. Airships are passe. Or locomotives, you could build a locomotive. Maybe you need to move a lot of stuff around, but you can harness the power of lightning now. Dwarves know how metal works. Dwarves that can work with lightning understands how metal interacts with lightning. And you're a step away from understanding magnetism. And once you are in a society with these astonishing elven scholars, the knowledge of magic, and people who can experiment freely, now I'll become resistant to lightning and now play with electricity. You're going to have wonders like magnetic levitation. You're going to have maglev trains that can carry huge amounts of stuff very, very quickly. You'll want that to go faster, enchant it with haste. And now you have a higher speed rail system that is completely unbeatable. And you don't even know you have been traveling that fast while you're on board it because you are hasted as well. And you start getting magical relativity questions. It's like, well, I was hasted, but no one else was. Am I actually older than the people that I meet when I get off the train because I was hasted for that long? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe there's a movement to eliminate that particular enchantment on trains, or not. Aerodynamics. Gnomes will make little flying machines and gliders, and well, now they can scale that up. Dwarves step in with material technology. Elves step in to make everything a little bit lighter and easier. Elves understand how air moves. They always have. So yeah, you can have giant airfoils. You can put sails on them if you really feel like it. Or you can use a certain amount of magnetic levitation. You can get ion drives. If you really start understanding how this goes. Maybe that's not what they call them. Maybe they're generating thrust off of pure magic. Maybe it's using a push spell to make air go that way, so you go that way. Newton's second law still works in D&D the last time I heard. Do you need giant neon signs? You can create illusions. If you can make the mind engines cast spells, then you've got something there to cast illusions. Where do they get the magical energy from? Where everyone else does. How do they replenish their spell slots? Maybe they shut down for a while. Maybe you need 2 mind engines mounted on something to constantly generate an illusion. How does the mind engine feel about this? We haven't asked them, and we don't really care about the answer. And now you've got another problem coming up in that society. And now, in this society where you can be an edge runner after you've got your elven rogue entertainer rolled up, where there are people who control the technology. There are always going to be people who understand it better, or who have invested more in it, who have purchased more. People who used to be adventurers and have taken that cash and, like every adventurer, sunk it into, well, let's buy structures in the society and own them. And maybe we can help people, or maybe we can just make more money. So you have a government composed of mind engines and a council that they have selected off of what the people need. And you have these big corporations are a thing. Corporations were invented in the India tea trading, the great Indian Tea Company days in England, to make it possible for people to engage in business without risking their personal resources. They can have a corporation, a structure on paper that takes all of the risk, that bears to lose all of its resources, while the people who are involved in running it do not, in fact, risk theirs. We lost a ship. Someone's got to get paid this. Well, the corporation's going to go bankrupt. I'm sorry, there's no structure that has that money. What about the people who owned it? Oh, there was a corporation, and now it's bankrupt. That's a damn shame. Build another ship. There'll be another corporation next week. No reason adventurers wouldn't do the same thing. Well, there's 6 of us, and we used to go out adventuring together. So now we're the company of the Blackfoot, and we'll just sink everything into the company. We'll call it. And you know what? We can go to one of these lawyers. There's a magistrate in the next county who will write up the Blackfoot itself as an entity, and the company of the Blackfoot will own all this stuff, and we'll get the profits, we'll tell it how to operate, but we can have underlings go in there and staff it and do stuff, and we'll just be, I don't know, we'll direct it, like from a. We'll form a board of directors. There we go. And we'll tell the Blackfoot what to do, and we'll assume some of the profits. We'll just take stock in the company. We could sell stock from the company. We can call it stocks. All of this stuff, everything that forms modern capitalism, can come about with a little bit more. You've got this society where there's going to be more resources, and it's going to be possible. Adventurers accumulate wealth. Adventurers centralize a lot of wealth and destabilize economies. If you really think about it, if they're not careful, they destabilize economies. So the class system starts to get really, really tight. So you've got people at the top who spent a couple of decades adventuring, and they got a lot of treasure, and they stocked it up, and well, let's get one of the mind engines to tell us how to make more of our money. And the mind engines know how to make more money. It's taking other people's money away. Not illegally. There are laws that and systems, and here's how you make more money. So you've got the haves and the have-mores, and then you've got the have-nots. There's only so many dungeons out there. There's only so much gold underground. There's only so many ancient artifacts of power locked away in temples at the far corners of the continent. So, there are those who have the wealth, and those who want the wealth. And into this system, let's introduce Durgath Burrowfound. Born poor. His parents were probably sent to debtor's prison. He was born in a friend's house, probably raised by friends of the family, maybe resented a bit. Durgath is a terrible name for a dwarf. Dwarves generally earned their second name. Burrowfound. Early days. Hill dwarf. Maybe made a little extra scratch finding colonies of rodents. You find a burrow of rabbits, or something like that. There's fur, there's meat, or maybe those are the buggers that have been wiping out your crops. And if you can find the burrow, you can wipe it out. He's an entertainer by trade, so eventually picked up a couple of skills. Knows some stories. Storytellers make great entertainers. Storytellers are some of the most important people in a low-tech society, because that's your social media. Those are the people who travel from place to place, spreading stories, either fictional stories about that they give a moral lesson or just carry your entertainment for a little while, or things that are happening around, a little bit of both. If a storyteller shows up, you always set a place for the storyteller. A storyteller can eat wherever they want to, sleep wherever they need to, because you always need the storyteller. Wouldn't that appeal to someone who was never really appreciated growing up? Someone who made the money that they lived off of finding piles of rodents underground. Learn to tell stories, maybe listen to a storyteller, maybe found a storyteller that would give them a hint or a pointer here and there. Durgath learned to tell stories. And if you are a storyteller, you don't just learn to tell them, you learn to hear them, you learn to listen to them, you learn to find stories. And now you've got the equivalent of a media in D&D. Someone who is becoming aware of what the situation in society is. This is why people get poor. This is why there are the rich up there and the poor down here, and there's so many poor and there's so few rich, and this is why you are poor. But you can always get a crust of bread and a bowl of soup if you're the storyteller. And one night, having absorbed all these stories with a head full of why he's poor, with a head full of there are people out there who have so much and they're not giving you any because they want to keep it all. Maybe there's some dragon greed involved in this. Your storyteller is visited by an angel, by a celestial being from on high that says, I want to change the world. I want to change everything about this. I want to make sure that people can have their wealth. And I want you to be my agent of change. Accept me. Make this deal with me. And I will show you how to make these things happen. And I will give you the power to do so. Storyteller ain't no fool. It's a celestial. What's the worst that can happen? He accepts the pact. Now we've got a problem. Because the celestial has an agenda. Of course, the celestial has an agenda. It's the whole mind engine thing. The society that has built itself around these mind engines just isn't considering the ramifications in the long run, but what it means to create a sentience. An act reserved for the gods, and they are using it to run billboards. Durgath is tasked with nothing less than bringing this society down. Raining low those on high. And not necessarily bringing high those who are low. That'd be a nice side effect, but it's not important. That council chamber in the castle at the top of the hill. That highest place where these structures of crystal and wire and cogwork and coils interact with the greatest and noblest minds in the nation to lead as much prosperity as they can in this uncertain, unequal place. Yeah, that's got to go. That's got to go hard. That's got to get blown the hell up. Durgath, warlock, creature of rage, storyteller, terrorist. You could call him that. Visionary, perhaps. Chaotic neutral. He don't give a fuck. He is out here to make it all fall down. He goes adventuring. He goes adventuring for a while. He's a dwarf. He doesn't have to worry about his health or his lifespan. The celestial follows him, empowers him, heals him, gives him the ability to carry on. If he gets a couple of scores while he's adventuring, if he scours out one little chest full of silver, if he manages to get a single hoarded collection of gems, then he can get replaced whatever needs to get replaced. He can get fixed whatever needs fixing. He can continue to endure and build his own power base. He can be one of the adventurers. The celestial guides him to becoming one of these. But unlike a lot of the other adventurers that form their companies and hoard their wealth, he has one goal. He has the goal of forming a different kind of company, one where he can assemble his minions, people who will help him go out and adventure. They get a percentage of it. He gets a percentage of it. Raise me up to the point where I can see the golden tower so I can wreck it. Chaotic neutral, he's an anarchist. He'll work within the structure a little bit. This is how things are done. I'll get me one of them mind engines. Yeah, that's just a matter of coin at this point in time. I can afford that, and I'll have it start telling me how to wreck everything. Oh, it might not want to. I'll make it. I'll find people who can make it tell me what I want to know. The celestial that is over my head can touch it and make it do what it wants. And now the celestial has a conduit through a mind engine, and it is with him all the time. Maybe at this point in time they can use a shrink spell or something. So he's got a pocket watch with a mind engine in it, and possessed by a celestial being that tells him the next steps he needs to take to bring society down. He gets his company, he gets his minions. Some people rise up within that organization to serve him better because maybe he goes out of his way to find people who are like-minded. He's an entertainer. He's an influencer. He can talk to people and see who in there's resonating with him. Oh, you want to bring it all down too? Work with me. Work with me and we'll bring this fucker to its knees. Come on, we can do this. That is what you're dealing with. An organization meant to bring down this society. Does the society need to be brought down? That depends entirely on your point of view. I don't know what your alignment is. What's your background? Maybe you think that way, maybe you don't. The society can benefit people. Anyone can get medical help that they need. People are a lot healthier in the society than in societies around it. You're not going to see a plague rampage through this society. The mind engines are going to see it coming, and there's going to be healers and medical people out there making sure that it doesn't happen. You can get a few cure lights in the right spot, and everything's fine because they can communicate and they can orchestrate. The society does a lot of good. There are people who live in poverty, but living in poverty in this society is like living in the middle class anywhere else. It's not that bad. It's not good. It could certainly be better. There are people who are making it worse for everyone else, but it's not that bad. Your player characters either came here from somewhere else and have recognized that there is a valuable society here, or they were born in this, raised to this. They have never known a time when food was that far away, where healing wasn't available if you needed your healing, where there wasn't some opportunity. There's work that needs to be done, but it's not all drudge work. A lot of this is done by mind engines that can cast spells. A mind engine that can cast prestidigitation alone, one cantrip, can clean an area, make sure everything is sparkling, warmed, dried, make sure that the soup tastes proper there. A household prestidigitation mind engine doesn't even have to be very big. You can mount one of those in the kitchen and everything comes out delicious and everything is always clean. There you go. That's the society here. Is it worth saving? Some people are going to think so. It's what you've got. This is what you live in. And unless you want to pick up your tools of the trade and go out and try and change the corporate structure, this is what you've got. Or maybe go adventure yourself. Go adventure yourself and see if you can change this from the inside, from the top. I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but I'll tell you one thing. There's a guy out there. There's a guy out there who's trying to bring it all down. He's got a good chance. He doesn't just want to bring down the corporate structure. He wants to raise low everything. He wants to bring every brick to the ground. No two stones resting on top of one another. He wants to take that healing that you can get if you are hurt and make it go away. He wants to make the food for everyone go away. Those little structures that make everything clean and taste good in your kitchen, he wants to shatter those under his steel boot heel. Because he doesn't believe anyone should have it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And that is where our campaign starts. In a bar, because it always starts in a bar, usually a place called the Tavern of the First Encounter, one of my favorite spots. We'll just call this one Encounters, like the restaurant at LAX, which I still need to go to. Bar where there's flashing lights and reflective surfaces everywhere, a little smoke covering the floor because it's pretty, comes in different colors depending on the time of day. Bartender has 100 different drinks that he can serve and a couple of mind engines back there helping him manage the bottles. Mage hand, another great thing to give a mind engine so it can hand him bottles or maybe mix a couple of simple drinks if the bartender's busy. And you and your friends have a table. You got the same table you always go to. You carved your names in a while ago, and well, they fixed that with the mending spell, but they realized you came there often enough that they let you put a plaque there. So even at first level, there's a bar with a table with your name on it. This is where you go. This is where you guys can be found, because someday you're going to have a company. Someday you're going to have enough money that a lot of you can have a company together, and that is where someone shows up one day and asks if you can help because someone is trying to break their mind engine. Do you take the job? It's 100 gold for each of you. It's a really good start on that nest egg. Make a company happen. What do you do? And that is what I do. That is what I do. I'm not going to do much editing on this. I'm going to let this come out as pretty much a single piece. No cuts, no breaks, no fades. That is me in the act of creation. And some of the stuff's actually, I've got this recorded now. Go back, write some of this down. I actually like some of this. I like the concept of the mind engine. I can see some of the art in my head. I want to see how I do that. I might write some of this up. This sounds like fun. Tell you what. Thank you for being with me. Whether you have watched one episode or whether you've watched 199 of these, this is episode 200. This is a kind of a big one for me. And I'm getting on towards 500 subscribers, which, frankly, I never thought I'd hit. I'm doing pretty well right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing if I actually manage to get there. If you liked this exercise, if you liked seeing what I do, or you like the content of what I just burbled out of my mouth, let me know. Leave me a comment below, and maybe I will see about writing some of this down, putting out a PDF of some of the details here, or maybe even eventually writing up the campaign. See if I can find some way to save good old Duragath here, and maybe string him up as a part of it. Again, the link to the generator page that I use for this is going to be down below. I'll also put the link to the dice page, the dice roller that I used down, so you can check that out for yourself. Thank you. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for paying attention to this. And thank you for your support. Even just watching, expressing any interest whatsoever. I'm very grateful. And it is my pleasure to do this. And to continue to do this. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, that's fair. Give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. More stuff like this See, create something else or some other random generation. If you have a another subject you'd like to hear me cover, or questions or comment, leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You will love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you do, you might want to hit the notification bell so that you're made aware when my videos become available. If you'd like to support the channel or me in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. Consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. Allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is What Has Mattered to Me. I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.